All right, so we're going to talk about graphing quadratic inequalities today. And on your notes, numbers, as you can tell, 1 through 3, the directions actually just say to graph. And it's a little different, they're actually a little easier. And the directions on 4 through 6 say to solve. So the first 3, we're just going to kind of get used to graphing. And then the last 3 will solve. And we're going to use our calculator. And I don't know if you remember, but we've solved by graphing with the calculator before, okay? So we're going to kind of do the same thing. So take your calculator out and let's just start. The only difference today is that instead of graphing a y equals, we're going to be graphing an inequality, right? So we're going to be graphing in this case, y is less than. Now, just to remember from before, if, and this is just kind of a think box for a second, when we had, for example, y is less than, let's say, x plus 5, if we drew the line, a less than meant we jumped down and we shaded below the line, correct? Okay, if we had a y is greater than x plus 5, if we drew your line, you put your pencil on the line and you jumped up and you shaded above the line, right? So if it was a less than, you jumped down and shaded. If it was a greater than, you jumped up and shaded. So just to keep that in mind, that will help us for today. So the first thing is take your calculator, and this first one is kind of weird. The answers on it are a little different. So go to your y equals, turn your calculator on, go to y equals, and let's type it in and see what it looks like. It says x squared minus 6x plus 2. And here's my graph. And it looks like the answers are 0 and pretty close to 6. Right, did you get typed in? Okay, it looks like the answers are like 0 and 6. If we go to our, where do we go to look to find our answers? Y'all remember? To the table, the second graph gives me the table. And we're looking for when the y value is 0. That's the answers to a quadratic, right? When y is 0, or it crosses the x-axis. So if we decided, if you look back at your graph, that it's 0 and 6 on the x, they're not there, are they? Do you see any y equals 0? I see a minimum at 3, negative 7, but I don't see what I should see, right? Sometimes they're not on the table. So we've studied before how to find the answer when they're not on the table. You go, do you remember what to do? We have to, I heard it, second trace, you have to calculate the 0. So you go to second calc, okay, and you go down to 2 for 0. And you hit enter. And because we're solving by graphing, we need a table. And guys, on my table, I need, let's say, 4 points. Okay? We want 4 points on there. You don't need a bunch, but you need 4. And you want to label the zeros and label the vertex. Okay? So I'm going to find this first one, this one right here that I'm pointing at. Let's find that 0 first. So remember, you put your cursor on it. Your cursor moves with the left and right arrow button. And now that I'm there, that's the one I want to find. It says left bound. So I'm going to enter the left arrow key like 2 times because I want to be left of my point, and I hit enter. Then I'm going to go back to the point again, and it says right bound. So I'm going to right arrow key a couple times and hit enter. Then it says guess. I'm just going to hit enter for guess. Don't worry about that. And then there's my 0. It's actually at 0.35 and the y value is 0. Remember, you know it's 0 because the y value is 0. So label it as my 0. Now go over to the other one. So we're going to go to second calc. Second calc. You want to calculate a 0, so go down to 2. Hit enter. Arrow over to it. Put your cursor kind of close. Okay, and the directions say left bound. So you're gonna hit the arrow key left a couple times. It's gonna go down, 'cause, you know, it's on a grid. You're gonna hit enter. Go back to the point, right bound, so hit the right arrow key a couple times, hit enter. Don't worry about the guess, you don't have to type in a guess, just hit enter again. So it's 5.60, it was really close to 6. Okay, and in between the two zeros is the what? The vertex, right? Okay, and you can either look at your table and try to find the vertex, or you can find it with your calculator, right? Now, I'm gonna show you how to do it with the calculator, because sometimes the vertex is not very pretty, all right? So to find the vertex, go back to second calc. And in our parabola, did we have a maximum or a minimum? Right, it was a minimum, it was a bottom. So go down and let's calculate a minimum. Remember, I went to second calc. I'm gonna calculate a minimum, so I'm gonna hit enter. And the same questions are kind of come up, left and right bound. So I'm gonna put my cursor on the minimum, and I'm gonna arrow over a couple left. Hit enter. And put it back on the minimum, arrow over to the right a couple, hit enter. You don't actually have to guess, just hit enter again. And the minimum was 3, -7. So that is your vertex. You should label it on your table. We're solving by graphing, so you need a table. Now, you can go back to the table and just pick one more point to fill in your 4 points. It doesn't matter which points you pick. I'm gonna take 6.2, because I went 0.3, 3, 5.6, and 6.2. Any point you want. Okay, now graph. So 0.350, 3, -7, 5.60, and 6.2. And they're mirror images of each other, so. Now, is my parabola going to be a solid line or a dashed line, according to this right here? Good, it's a solid line. So here it is. Oh, I missed a point. Be careful when you graph. I missed this point right here. I missed my 0. Okay, so there's my parabola. Now we have to decide about shading, right? Okay, we decided that if it's a less than, we put our point on the line and jump down. So this is a less than, y is less than. So if I put my point on the parabola and I jump down, then I'm shading below it. So it's this part. Okay? Now let's go to the next one. Well, because it said y is less than, right? And less than means you jump down. So no matter where I'm at on this parabola, if I was even up here, if I jump down, I'm here. If I'm here, if I jump down, I'll be here. If I'm here and I jump down, I'm here. It's outside. You see it now?
Yeah.
Good question. Okay, go to number 2. Here, this is y is greater than. Now be careful, this is going to be a dotted line or a dashed line. I think these points are a little prettier. Okay, so you don't necessarily need your calculator to find the zeros. It's nice to know how, though, in case they aren't pretty, right? Okay, so go to y equals and type it in. X squared plus 3x minus 4 and graph it. Okay, it looks to me like it's -4 and 1, so I go to my table to check. x was like -4 and 1. And look, there it is. You see it? -4 and 1. So I'm gonna, remember when you make your table to put your zeros there. So -4 and was a 0, and +1 was a 0. Okay, now look up here. This part's important. I also requested the vertex, right? And in this case, if you look at your graph, it's a minimum. So I'm going to be looking for the smallest y value. So if I go and look at my table, there's a problem right here. I've got two y values that are exactly the same, right? So does it actually give me the vertex? No, you've got to find it. Okay, so go back to your graph and let's find the vertex. Do you remember how to find it? What? How are you going to find it? You go to second calc. It's a minimum. So there I am, my cursor's on my vertex. I'm going to go to the left and hit enter. Now I'm back to my vertex. Go to the right and hit enter. So my vertex is actually -1.49 and -6.25. There's your 3 points. Okay, and then you got to go back to your table and give me one more. It doesn't matter, just something close to that. Maybe let's use 2.6. Whatever you want, but you need 4 points on your table because we're solving by graphing. Okay. The alternative, like the old school way, guys, to do this would have been you had to find all the points manually without a calculator. Right, so at least we get to use a calculator to find them. So let's graph our points we found. Don't forget it's a dashed line. Okay, and remember the question is to solve by graphing. So we're not actually having to write a solution. But now we have to decide where to shade. Once you have your parabola drawn, we've got to decide where to shade. And it said y is greater than. So put your pencil on your parabola anywhere. Greater than means jump what? Up. So if I'm going to jump up, I'm inside, correct? So we're going to shade inside. Now, it did not, now this part's important, so tune in for just a second. Okay, it didn't actually ask me for the answer. But what is the answer to a quadratic? The answer to quadratic is what? They're zeros, right? So the answer then here, it looks to me like I have all this stuff that's shaded, correct? But what are the actual answers? To what? Good, anything that's on the x-axis. Because the way I think about this, and I'll use different colors, it's gonna be kind of hard maybe to see on there, but pretend like you have this little parabola, okay, right here, kind of like this. And by shading, you remember when you were a kid and you would draw rainbows? You're just drawing them next to each other in every color, okay? So if you kept on, and if I kept building these parabolas, right? Everything's going to be shaded inside this pink parabola, or inside the original parabola, right? Everything inside here is shaded. Agree? So everything inside there is going to be shaded, right? But even though all this stuff is shaded, on each parabola, there's only two answers, right? So on this purple parabola, the answer would be here and here. And on this parabola, it's here and here, and so forth, right? So the answers are actually, even though I've shaded all of this, where are your actual answers, even though it didn't ask you? Yeah, they're here on this x-axis. So the answers are between these two numbers. Okay, the visual just maybe helped you, I don't know. Okay, let's go to number 3. Go to y equals and type it in. So you can have -x² plus 10x minus 25 and graph. Okay? Okay, so let's build a table. How many zeros does this have, guys, this time? There's only one, right? Just this one right here. So go to the table and let's see, it looks like it's about 5. Yep, there it is, 5, 0. Your 5, 0 is your vertex and it's your 0. It's the same thing, so I'm gonna label it as both, because it's both of them. And then I need 4 points, so I'm gonna go, a little above and a little below. And then let's graph it. It's a solid line. And before you actually shade, let me talk to you about it for a second. Don't actually shade yet. Okay, which way do you think you're going to shade it? Above it or inside of it? May want to guess? You got a 50-50 shot. Okay, above maybe? What's different between number 2 and number 3? On number 2, the inequality, the y is on the left, right? And on number 3, the inequality, the y is on the right. You have to read it backwards if it's on the right. So you have to either read it from y is less than, or if you want, you can rewrite this. So I can rewrite it, put the y on the left side, which means I have to flip the direction of the inequality. Okay, which says y is less than. If you need to see that way you can, but you're not required to actually write that out. You can look at this and notice. If the y is on the right side, read the inequality backwards. I'm going to say y, I'm on the skinny end of the inequality, so y is less than this. Less than means jump down. So this part that's going to be shaded is here. How many solutions does it have, even with all that shaded? How many solutions does it still have? Good, Caden, just 1. Still has 1. What would have happened if I had shaded above it? How many solutions would I have had? Yeah, everything. All the x's. Okay, let's go to the next one, number 4. Okay, the directions change on number 4. They're actually asking you to solve. So let's type it in your calculator and solve. So go to y equals x squared minus 10x plus 16 and graph it. The answers are perfect on this one, which makes it easy. Looks like they are 2 and 8. So go to your table. Go to your table and write down 4. There they are. And write down 4 answers. Be sure to label zeros and vertex. And my vertex is going to be a minimum. There's your lowest value, 5, -9. So label your vertex. If the vertex isn't perfect, you go find the vertex. And you need 4 points. Then you go over and you graph your picture. It's a dashed line. All right, so now let's shade it and actually write our answer. Again, this is on the wrong side. We need to move it to the other side, or you can read it backwards. So we kind of pretend like this is y. So we're saying y is, I'm on the big end of the inequality, y is greater than. So you should have taken your line and jumped up. So this is what's shaded. So it's kind of like saying you're taking all these parabolas and you're putting them, if this was your parabola, you're putting them one on top of the other and you're going to keep going, right? It fills in everything. But even if that's the case, the only answer to the parabolas are what touches here. Even though all this stuff is filled in, these are the only answers. So what's my actual answer here, guys? Between what two numbers? Between 2 and 8, right? So we're going to say x is between 2 and 8. Now, I'm only using less than signs, not less than equal to, because look up here at this. This is only a less than sign. It's a dashed line, so 2 and 8 don't actually work, right? Or anything between 2 and 8. So it looks like this. This is your actual solution. This is the graph, and this is the answer. Okay, let's do number 5. Go to y equals and type it in. X squared minus 2x. It's got a minimum. Let's go to the table. It looks to me like it's 0 and 2. You can go to the table and check. I'm looking for when y is 0. And yep, there it is, here and here. The answers to a quadratic is when y is 0. So build your table. Label the vertex. And label your 0. Remember, your 0 is going to be the minimum. Here's your 0 right here. It's always the minimum. Well, in this picture, it can be the maximum as well. Now go back and graph those points. It's a solid line. And then it says 0 is less than, or you can consider it as kind of like y. Y is less than. Okay? Guys, the reason it changes on the front page where it says y and this says 0, it's because if you're trying to solve a quadratic, we set it equal to 0, right? We want to know when the quadratics are equal to 0. So that's the reason that these are solved. They have 0 there. So if y is less than, we're going to jump what? Down. So you're going to shade here. And this time, it's like you've got all these parabolas on the outside, okay? But instead of your answers being between two things, right, your answers are from this way out and from this way out. Do you see that? So how would we write our answers? This value is what, 2? So we want all numbers bigger than 2, right? All x is greater than 2, or what about this side?
Did you get your vertex and numbers mixed up?
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Thank you. Guys, I'm sorry, that was my mistake. I labeled these incorrectly.
I know you did.
Yeah, thank you. These are my zeros, I apologize, and this is my vertex. Thank you so much. Okay, so to write my answer, here, everything bigger than 2 works. On this side, everything what? Less than 0 works. So look at the two different ways to write the answer. If your answer looks like number 4, where it's between two things, then x is between 2 and 8. Yeah, you need, yeah. Then if it looks like this, where you're going to the right and to the left, then you want x is greater than or equal to 2. Thank you. Or x is less than or equal to 2. You decide on if there's an equal to by looking at the original problem.
These
these problems, are we gonna put or and?
Or.
Or.
Now then, let's go to the number 6.